my favorite meditation instructors in the world. So Emily is the founder of Ziva Meditation. It's a meditation school in New York. She's also the founder of Ziva Mind, which is one of the world's first online meditation training programs. But here's what's fascinating about Emily. Emily was a Broadway actress for almost 10 years. She was in shows such as A Chorus Line. But she got really stressed out dealing with show business, and she dabbled with meditation to help alleviate her stress. She found that the benefits of meditation, physically, mentally, spiritually, were so profound, she decided that she wanted to do more in this field. She decided to become a meditation instructor. So Emily actually journeyed to Rishikesh, India, studied meditation, came back to New York, and set up her school. Today, she is an incredible teacher because that Broadway background, that way of storytelling, her magnetic personality in front of a camera, combines with her depth of knowledge of meditation to make her one of my favorite trainers for meditation. I put Emily on stage at A-Fest and she blows the audience away. And she's also spoken at Harvard, at Google for their employees. She's spoken at the Global Alliance for Transformational Entertainment with Eckhart Tolle. She's spoken at the Bulletproof Conference with Dave Asprey. She's developing a massive fan base in the biohacker science community for people who want to understand how to take meditation and bring it into their lives. So this is what we're going to be discussing with Emily today. We're going to talk about how to optimize your day. And Emily is going to share with you 4 different ideas on how to help make you a super performer. First, no surprise, is about meditation. And she's actually going to teach you and guide you into a really simple morning meditation. Now, I know you guys, half of you meditate daily, the other half are having trouble with it. Emily's speciality is teaching meditation that you have no excuse not to do. If you're ADHD or if you're too busy, she's going to show you how to overcome those barriers, and she's going to help you understand in her beautiful teaching way why meditation is so important. But then we're going to explore 3 additional models and systems to hack your way to more productivity. We'll be looking at some ancient Indian practices based on Ayurveda, which is a 2,000-year-old art form akin to today's biohacking. And then we're going to talk about eating. We're going to talk about one of the biggest lies and myths when it comes to nutrition today, and how this could be costing you your performance and perhaps adding additional unwanted body weight to you. Finally, she's going to share a simple, quick idea called the manager schedule versus the creator schedule. So get ready for an incredible learning opportunity with Emily Fletcher. Hi, Emily.
Hi, friend.
So did you just call me friend?
I sure did.
That is the weirdest way of addressing me.
But we are.
That's okay. Because you normally address the audience as friends, and that just...
Did it make you feel like you were watching me on video?
It did.
Okay. Hi, Vishen.
Oh, thank you so much.
Does that feel better?
That's so much better.
Even though my hands are cold?
So guys, I'm so excited to have Emily Fletcher here. You guys know she is one of our most popular trainers on consciousness engineering. I reference her in my book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And that's because I do consider Emily one of the greatest meditation teachers out there right now. If you want to learn meditation, she's someone I recommend. Today we're going to talk about something completely different though. We're going to talk about optimizing your life. See, Emily works with many of the world's greatest superstars, Broadway actors, television stars, and she helps them become more efficient at what they do through the practice of going within. So we're going to be addressing that. But before we get into all of that nitty-gritty, I always start these interviews with a simple question, right? And that question is, Emily Fletcher, tell us, what keeps you up at night?
What a good one. Well, I guess I'll start by saying, thankfully, meditation cured my insomnia on the first day, so I don't have insomnia anymore, so I don't actually stay up at the night worrying about this stuff anymore. But I am looking to have a kid soon. I got married a year ago, and we're thinking about having a baby. And so I do find that my thinking is changing, and I'm starting to think about the big problems that we're facing as a species. And do I really want to bring a human being into this planet as it exists right now? And so actually, when I was thinking about this is what inspired the talk that I'm going to give at A-Fest, and it's called How to Save the World in 2 Simple Steps. And it really is it's a new model. I want to give people a new model for looking at the big challenges that we're facing as a society. And I affectionately call them the 3 big scaries. And it is climate change, terrorism, and the fact that much of our food isn't food anymore. These are the things that keep me up at night, proverbially. So climate change, terrorism, and the fact that much of our food isn't food anymore. And my hypothesis here is that these three big problems, these three big scaries, are not actually the problem at all, but rather symptoms of an underlying imbalance. So if we really look underneath the fact that our food isn't food anymore, I propose that the problem, the underlying imbalance, is actually greed. And if you look underneath terrorism, the underlying imbalance is actually separateness. And if you look underneath climate change, the underlying imbalance is what I call the I'll be happy when syndrome, which is the mistaken belief that we can somehow acquire our way to happiness or consume our way to fulfillment. And spoiler alert, how do we save the world? In 2 simple steps. Step 1, meditate in the morning. Step 2, meditate in the afternoon. Now, why? Because meditation is the fastest way to up-level our state of consciousness, and I think that it is our state of consciousness that is actually creating those 3 underlying imbalances. Because if you think about it, your state of consciousness is the thing that impacts every single decision that you make. So climate change isn't just happening to us, it's a byproduct of a bunch of decisions that we've all been making. Terrorism doesn't just happen to us, it's a byproduct of a bunch of decisions of being made by people who are unhappy and who view some people as same and some people as separate. And our food didn't just get to be like food-like products that don't occur in nature. That's a symptom of greed, of both us as consumers looking for the cheapest food we can buy versus the healthiest, and corporations and companies which are responsible for feeding the majority of the world's population looking to make more of a profit than they are concerned about the health of their consumer. So the experiment that I would love to do is, let's really get the world meditating and let's see if we can't up-level the state of consciousness, correct the underlying imbalance, and then see if those symptoms will start to shift.
That's beautifully said. But how would meditation do that? Let me just play skeptic for a moment.
Please.
What exactly is going on when you meditate? Why is this so important? Now, I know those of you watching, about half of you have a meditation practice, the other half have tried it and given up, or you find yourself too busy, or you don't know if you're doing it right, or you have any other, and let me just say this, bullshit excuse. Because if you aren't meditating, you are not working, not living life at the level you could be, okay? But we're going to come and give you some tools you can use in a moment. But Emily, let me ask you that. Let me play the skeptic. What's the big frickin' deal?
So if you don't have a meditation practice, most of us are living under more demand than we can handle. Like, sleep is not a restful enough form of rest to handle the level of demand that most of us are under. We're all busy. Even if you're, living on Fiji, eating, delicious food, and you had great parents and nothing bad ever happened to you, just being alive right now with all the Wi-Fi and the radiation and the plane ride that you took to get to Fiji, like, there's just things that are taxing on our physical bodies. So even if you don't identify as someone who is being stressed, eating a mango in the wintertime can be stressful on the body. Eating anything that's been in a microwave ever, stressful on a body. Taking a plane ride anywhere, stressful for the body. And so when our body is stressed, we don't have our full cognitive and decision-making abilities available to us because the body is spending so much time handling the stress. And I'll tell this story because I know that you love it. I think we have to understand what happens to the body when we get stressed, and then it's easier to understand why, if you don't have a meditation practice, you're not making decisions at the level that you could be. So if we want to understand the way stress impacts the body, we have to cut back in time a few thousand years. Say you're hunting and gathering and a saber-toothed tiger jumps out at you. Now your body's going to launch into a series of chemical reactions. First thing that will happen is that your digestion will flood with acid to shut down digestion because you need all hands on deck to fight or flee the tiger. That same acid will make your skin acidic so that you don't taste very good. It also causes premature aging. Your bladder and bowels will evacuate so that you're light on your feet, which can create a bit of a nervous poo, which I used to handle a lot when I was an actress. You go into the audition room and you're like, dear Lord, what happened? Sorry to ruin everyone's fantasy about actresses. But they're all nervous before the audition. And then the other thing that happened is that your adrenaline levels increase and your cortisol levels increase. And if you want to freak yourself out, have a little Google search about what cortisol is doing to you over time. It's the equivalent of dumping acid in your body all day, every day. And the other thing that happens is that your immune system goes to the back burner because who cares if you're going to get cancer if you're about to be killed by a tiger? Again, you need all of your resources available to handle the saber-toothed tiger. So this series of chemical reactions is actually really good for you if your demands are predatory attacks. But if your demands are plane rides and deadlines and in-laws and emails, then this fight or flight stress reaction has actually become maladaptive. It's now disallowing us from performing at the top of our game. It's robbing us of our full decision-making and creative problem-solving ability. And in my personal opinion, we have some big problems to face as a species right now. And so I think we need all hands on deck collectively to solve, the plastic problem and climate change and terrorism and to solve the food crisis. So it doesn't happen by them doing it. It's not just like, well, some politician needs to solve the problem or some CEO of some company needs to solve the problem, because there is no them. There is only us. And elected officials are only ever going to be representative of the state of consciousness of the collective. So if we want to change the minds of the CEOs and the politicians, we have to first up-level the consciousness of the collective. And also, on a very practical level, we have power as consumers. Corporations are very, very sensitive to what you buy, because if you don't buy their product, they don't make money. And if they don't make money, then they're not successful. And so we have a lot more power than we think. And so if we can shift the collective consciousness to have people to start investing in organic foods, investing in healthy foods, starting to see their enemy as the same, starting to be cognizant of how much they're consuming and how much plastic they are personally responsible for, this is the only way to create change.
So I love what you said about stress, and I totally get that. Stress is bad. And
well, stress is bad over the long term. Over the short term, it can be quite good for you, but long term, it's toxic.
Got it. So I've read about how there's stress, then there's eustress, EUSTRESS, stress and eustress. And eustress is supposed to be healthy. Eustress is what gives you that kick to move on and work, right? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that getting stressed is fine. And actually sometimes very appropriate. If you get into a car accident, great, get stressed. You need to lift a car off a baby, perfect time to get stressed. You're outrunning a tiger, great, get stressed. The trick is that because most of us don't have stress relieving tools or meditation practice, we have this trauma or this stressful situation, and then we hold on to it for sometimes months, sometimes decades. Let's say you have a room filled with 100 people. 50 of them are meditators, 50 of them are not. Let's say that saber-toothed tiger comes into the room with the intent to kill. Every single person in that room is going to launch into a fight or flight stress reaction, and that's a totally appropriate time to be stressed. The difference between the meditators and the non-meditators is that the meditators are going to be at the bar telling a funny story about the tiger in an hour, and the non-meditators have to pay their therapist $200 a week for the next decade.
Got it. Beautiful. That makes so much amazing sense. Okay, so we understand that meditation helps relieve stress, and this could be why all of the studies say that meditation reduces the odds of heart disease, meditation makes you better in bed, meditation creates more creativity, meditation allows you to tap into your inspiration, meditation slows down aging, because as you mentioned, stress does that to you. The acid that's released in your body when you're stressed out creates aging. It also makes you taste funny, so apparently tigers don't eat you. So I can see now you can see how meditation has such a beautiful advantage. Here's what I think people may be wondering. You spoke about how meditation makes us more socially responsible, right? It helps us take better care of our world. What's going on there? What's happening with that?
Thank you for asking. So when you start a meditation practice, something in your brain lights up called the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex. So dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, which is basically just a fancy way of saying the altruistic part of the brain. So you actually so the dorsomedial prefrontal cortex is the piece of you that's in charge of people that we perceive as separate. Right now, the me center of the brain is already very developed. So what meditation is doing is that it's quite literally expanding your idea and your sense of who you perceive as same. You start to see more of yourself inside of others and more of others inside of you. So you start to realize quite viscerally that as I hurt you, I hurt myself. And as I help you, I help myself. Because in order to terrorize someone, you must first have an enemy. And in order to have an enemy, you have to first perceive them as separate. And the more you meditate, the larger this dorsomedial prefrontal cortex becomes, the harder it is for you to see anyone as separate.
Wow, that explains a lot. This is why, I've read studies about how meditation reduces crime. Meditation in prisons allows prisoners to be released and not get incarcerated again after a couple of years. So that's beautiful. I had no idea that it had to do with a chemical situation happening in your brain.
Yeah, it's a certain part of the brain that starts to light up, and it actually gets stronger over time. What a lot of people don't know is that they think that, oh, meditation might change the brain chemistry, but over time it actually changes like the neurogenesis. It actually can rebuild gray matter. And one of the most fascinating things that meditation does is that it strengthens and enlarges something called the corpus callosum, which is the thin white strip that literally connects the right and left hemispheres of the brain. So the left hemisphere of the brain is, now this is admittedly a gross oversimplification, but don't send us 1,000 emails. I was a Broadway showgirl. I'm not a neuroscientist, okay? So left hemisphere of the brain is like the part that's in charge of critical thought, analytical thought, past, future, separateness actually, math, balancing your checkbooks. And the right hemisphere of the brain is more in charge of creativity, intuition, creative problem solving, connection, color. All of these things are right brain phenomena. And if you look at a human brain, it actually splits right down the middle. The only thing that connects the two hemispheres of the brain is this thin little white strip called the corpus callosum. Now, we've known for a long time that meditators have a thicker corpus callosum than non-meditators, but we weren't able to prove if it was causal or correlated. Now we know that the longer you meditate, the thicker this thing becomes, which suggests that it is indeed causal, that it is the meditation that is strengthening this piece that connects the critical part of the brain with the creative part of the brain. So it's basically, if this is your individual and this is your collective, then you start to have this simultaneity of like, yes, sure, I'm Emily Fletcher, but I'm also everything and everyone. I am you, you are me. There's only one thing and we're all it. The Vedic sages have been saying that for thousands of years.
We're creating more feelings of connectedness, we're creating more feelings of empathy, we're creating the ability to understand each other, and that helps create a better, safer, more beautiful world.
Yeah, it's like you're up-leveling a state of consciousness, which makes those imbalances impossible. Like, if I perceive you as the same as me, then how could I terrorize you? Why would I want to give you food that is poisonous? Why would I want to poison the planet for the next generation if I really see them as an extension of myself?
That's a beautiful thought. Okay, so at this point, many of you who are already meditating are going, wow, I knew that stuff. And you're probably pretty proud of yourself. Awesome, you deserve to be. And there are some of you who want to meditate and are ready to do it, but are finding it so difficult, so challenging. And Emily, let's talk about that. How can we bring a meditation practice into our lives? How do we know if we're doing it right? How do we stay focused? I'd love for you to help the people who are listening who really badly want to bring meditation into their lives to know what are the next steps they need to do.
Really good question. So I guess I'll start by saying that meditation is like any other skill, right? It takes a bit of training, a bit of practice, and once you know what you're doing, then it's quite enjoyable and you actually look forward to it. And you're like, wait, you mean I can have better skin, better sex, better parking karma, and do my bit to save the world? Yes, you can. And so even though it's selfishly, we all come to meditation to be better, but it actually can be a very selfless thing. But the first thing to know is that it's like any other skill. So if you're trying to just close your eyes and magically know how to meditate, that's probably going to feel like you're failing and you're probably going to quit after a pretty short amount of time. Because most people are judging themselves at how good they are at meditation based on how good they are at giving their mind a command to be silent. And in my experience, I've never met anyone in my 10 years of meditating, with all the masters that I've studied, that I've never met anyone that could be like, okay, brain, shut up. Because the mind thinks involuntarily, just like the heart beats involuntarily. This is something that people don't talk about, right? So imagine how ridiculous it would be to sit down and meditate and be like, okay, heart, stop beating. Oh, now it's beating faster. Wait, no, I'm thinking about it's beating. Now it's beating really fast. Oh my God, I'm the worst meditator in the land and I quit. And yet this is exactly what people do when they go to meditate. They're like, okay, brain, stop it. Like, oh, I gotta get Twinkies on my way home from work. All right, I left money in my pants pocket. Why is my ex-boyfriend such a beep? And you start thinking all these thoughts, and then you feel like you're failing because you're thinking, and then you're like, I know meditation is good for you, but I can't do it because I can't stop my crazy mind from thinking. So the thing here is to know that it's the nature of the mind to think. That's what it will do. Thoughts are not the enemy of meditation. And there's thousands of different techniques out there. There's mindfulness, there's guided visualization, there's breath work. What I teach is like a self-induced transcendence style of meditation. So I give people the tools to become self-sufficient meditators, to where they can do this thing anywhere, anytime, and it's the ultimate portable device. You could do it on a plane, on a train, and once you get the hang of it, you could do it in Times Square, on a bus, and this way you always have this window in and this way to access your bliss and your fulfillment in the only place that they reside, which is inside of you. And then once you have that, it impacts everything that you do.
So the first unnecessary model or bad model that we want to pluck out of your head is that you need to clear your mind while meditating. So you do not need to clear your mind. But if we aren't clearing our mind, what are we focusing on?
Well, I think that this is a subtle distinction, but it's an important one. That it's not that no one can clear their mind. It's not that it's impossible to access other states of consciousness. It's just that when people don't have any training and they hear people say clear their mind, then what they do is that they sit down and they try to give their mind a command to stop. And that's when we mess it up, right? We try to go in and we try to control it because we have no model for what surrendering looks like. We in the West are not very good at letting go. We're not very good at trusting. We're good at thinking, taking action, achieving, making money so we can be happy in the future. And so we approach our meditation practice with the same level of control, right? Well, I want all those benefits that Vishen and Emily were talking about, so I'm going to sit down and I'm going to be the best meditator in the land, right? And they really try to muscle the meditation, and then it sucks. Right? And so what I actually teach is surrender and effortlessness. So it depends on what type of meditation you're doing, but if you have a bit of training, then you'll get some techniques like either following the breath or following along in a guided visualization. In the style that I teach, I give people a mantra. And the mantra, so mantra is a Sanskrit word. Man means mind and tra means vehicle. Now, a mantra is a mind vehicle custom designed to take you from these active layers of left brain thinking down into more subtle layers of right brain being. And so it's the mantra that sort of does the work for you. And even though you have that tool, you're still allowed to have other thoughts. You just come back when you notice that you've taken a little mental field trip. But it's really not about focusing, because focusing connotes pushing something out or denying what is. And I'm very interested in a very inclusive meditation practice where you pull the lens back and allow everything that's happening to be included in the experience.
And so one could be doing, in addition to mantras, one could be doing breathing, or they could be doing creative visualization, or they could be doing gratitude, or they could be doing a compassion practice, and that is all still a meditation, a form of meditation.
Yes, some of them are. I think it's important I should say that I'm a meditation snob, and I have a very specific idea of what I personally would call meditation. Right. Yes, meditation very simply is a stress relieving tool, and everything that you just mentioned will help to reduce stress. What I personally call meditation is where you're accessing that verifiable fourth state of consciousness. Mindfulness, while it is a type of meditation, it's more of a waking state practice, and it's more about like directing your focus, whereas what I teach is a non-directed focus style of meditation. It's more about letting go.
And that's where the mantra comes in.
Yeah, the mantra is sort of like it's a way to help you let go.
Okay, so in terms of your style, Emily, give us a technique that people watching could try immediately to gain some of these benefits.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I just want to say that I think it's really important that if you're going to really commit to a practice, that it is really good to learn face-to-face, and it's good to get solid training. And I want you to kind of dip your toe into the water. I want you to have something that you can start to play around with. And sometimes a letting go practice or a silent practice is really new for people. And I'll also say that if you've done a lot of mindfulness in the past, or any other type of meditation, I invite you to just let go of any old notion of what you think meditation is. And if you want to, call this thing Ramalama Ding Dong. Call it something other than meditation so that you can go into this with beginner's mind. But I'll share with you something that I like to call the M-word technique, because it's a great way of dipping your toe into the water of a silent practice. And what I would recommend is that you have a seat, so just get in a comfortable position, ideally with your back supported and your head free. So you guys are probably already sitting down, but just back supported, head free, and go ahead and close the eyes. And we'll take a few seconds, just, taking a few breaths, settling into the chair. So let's inhale for 2 and exhale for 4. Good. Inhale for 2 and exhale for 4. Really good. And I'm going to walk you through this step by step. This is a really simple but powerful technique called the M-word technique. It's almost like meditation light. And we're going to use the word one almost like a mantra, almost like an anchor. So you can imagine that you're hearing this word one in the background of your mind, just really innocently and effortlessly, like an anchor, just helping to settle you down into more and more subtle states of consciousness. So we'll just silently think it ever so gently. Just one. Letting it be so faint and so fine, and even giving it permission to slip away if it wants to. Reminding yourself that you're absolutely allowed to have thoughts. And when you notice that you've gone off on a mental field trip, it's all good. Now you have this beautiful anchor of a word for you to come back to. And we'll be here for a few moments. Don't mind the time. Just giving yourself full permission to be right here, right now. Reminding yourself that meditation isn't going to make you deaf. Your eardrums are still going to work just fine. Sometimes it's almost like you have spidey senses when you meditate. So just give yourself permission to include everything that's happening in the room around you. Include that in your meditation. And when you've gone off on a mental field trip, all good. Know that you have this beautiful anchor to come back to, ever so gently. Don't worry too much about the tempo. Letting ourselves be lazy and sloppy and even sleepy. If your head feels heavy or you feel like some sleep is coming on, just let yourself fall into that feeling. Keep the eyes closed. I will let go of the word inside. And we'll take a few moments with the eyes closed, just cutting the cord to the word that's been acting a bit like an anchor, so that now we can start to effortlessly, gently float back into the body, into the room, into the right now. Perhaps scanning your body to notice if any old pains came up, or do you feel more relaxed now than you did when you started? There's no right or wrong, you're just checking in to see how you feel now versus how you felt when you began. Taking a nice deep inhale through the nose, and exhaling anything you want to let go of. And just for fun, no one's watching you right now, our eyes are closed. What if you just bring a big old toothy Julia Roberts grin to your face? Even if you have to fake it till you make it, just bring a big old smile to your face and inhale that smile into every single cell of your body. Even if you're faking it till you make it, and then exhale. Really good. And one more time, just for good measure, a big, fat, toothy Julia Roberts grin on your face, and inhale that smile to every single cell of your body, energizing it with bliss and fulfillment and presence. And then exhaling. Really good. And in your own time, whenever you're ready, you can start to gently, slowly open the eyes. I'll take over the interview. Like, hi everyone, I'm Vishen Lakhiani. Welcome to Mind Valley.
Did I fall asleep?
I love it. No, you weren't sleeping. I think you were transcending.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
So did you ask us to wake up?
I did.
Okay.
That's awesome. I'm going to call that a big success.
Okay, so...
That's maybe my favorite thing that's ever happened in an interview.
So...
I think we should pick it up from when it says open your eyes.
Right. Okay.
No, that was amazing. Let's keep all of that. No, for real, that's so good. And it's good. It shows people like it's perfect. It's perfect. It's real, it's perfect, it's funny. I thought you were kind of like doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
So obviously I'm embarrassed there. So I fell asleep. And even me who meditates like all the time, I fell asleep on that one.
No, but that honestly, so let's talk about this, okay? Because this is big. Because a lot of people think, especially when they start this style of meditation, they think that they're falling asleep. But actually what you are falling into is that fourth state of consciousness where the right and left hemispheres of the brain are functioning in unison. And there's an alertness, but your body is getting very deep rest. There's no way you fell asleep in the 3 minutes that our eyes were closed. And when I was watching, like I would actually be able to hear, if you were to fall asleep, your breathing would have changed and it would have gone... But that didn't happen. Your breathing was still very shallow, which means that your mind was alert. Because again, if we go back 10,000 years ago, nature won't let you be in blackout sleep state and resting as deeply as you were just then physically at the same time, because you'd be an evolutionary liability. Basically, when we're sleeping, brain is chilling, so body has to be on guard. When we're meditating, body's chilling, brain is on guard. So what was happening right there is that you were actually quite alert, but your body was getting deep rest, which is beautiful. And probably just because you're used to meditating for 30 minutes, that was just the tip of the iceberg for you. You know, you were ready to like dive in, and yet I'm doing this for people who are starting a meditation practice who is a bit more abbreviated. But I actually think this is such a beautiful, happy accident because I think so many people are going to learn.
Right, because falling asleep is one of the biggest challenges that people have. So if people are falling asleep, then you're saying it is okay.
Well, I think what I'm saying is that in the beginning of a meditation practice, people think that they're falling asleep, but what's actually happening is that they're falling into this transcendence or this fourth state of consciousness. So the thing to know here is that every time the brain transitions between waking and sleeping, you move through a 30-second window of transcendence that can feel very much like sleep. So in the beginning, yes, give yourself full permission to just fall into that feeling. And worst case scenario, you take a 5-minute little power nap and then you feel better afterwards.
That's really good. So for those who are listening who want to take this home and practice this, what should they do tomorrow?
Okay, so I'd say best thing to do would be the first thing in the morning before coffee, breakfast, computer. Wake up, go to the bathroom, and then have a seat, back supported, head free, have a timepiece near you, and I recommend starting with 5 minutes. And actually, you know, if you're really freaked out about the time, you could set an alarm, but what I would love for you to start to train yourself is to know that you have an internal barometer. And that if you set your intention to come out at 5 minutes, it's actually very possible for you to come out at 5 minutes. It might take a few days, but you'll get there. And I would say with this very simple technique, just using the word 1, I think 5 minutes is all you'd want to do. And if you like that, maybe go up to 6. And if you like that, maybe go up to 7. And if you're pretty consistent with that, then it'd probably be time to come over and check out our meditation course at Mind Valley or check out zivameditation.com, and then you'll get some more in-depth training that'll really make you a self-sufficient meditator with a practice you can do anywhere, anytime.
But already with this simple practice that you just learned, you should start seeing some major benefits in your life.
Totally.
But I understand that people shouldn't just be doing this in the morning. You recommend people do it twice a day. What's the second time they should be doing it?
So ideally at some point before dinner, just any point before your evening meal.
And so literally each session could take 5 minutes each. Perfect. And what type of changes do people see after doing this for, say, a week? What could the people who are listening, who are new to meditation, expect from this?
I would say the things you want to look out for are how are you performing in your waking state, right? How much patience do you have? How much creativity do you have? You know, how present are you? Is your sleep get a little bit better? Now, admittedly, this is a baby step, you know, so 5 minutes twice a day it's going to be gradual, but that's enough. That's going to be powerful enough to see some shifts, but not so powerful that it's going to cause a big level of like an emotional detox. Because that can happen sometimes when people start a meditation practice. So let's just chat about it in case it does happen for people, is to know that meditation is much more like cleaning out your closet than it is like a day at the spa. You know, people think, oh, I'm meditating, so I'm never going to be sad again, or meditating, I'm never going to feel a feeling again. And that's not true at all. Meditation, if anything, it makes you feel things more intensely, so you feel them faster, and you move through to the new now, right? Which is actually a beautiful way to go through life. You want to experience it fully, and then be back in the present moment. It's not about putting up a shield and not letting anything touch you ever, because that's like a robot numb person, and that's no fun. So you might have some feelings that start to come up and out, and know that that's part of like the emotional cleaning out of the closet.
I like how you explained that. So we were going to talk about ways to optimize our day. And obviously meditation is one of those number one ways. But I know that you have a whole bunch of other ideas and systems under your belt that we could learn from.
Yeah. So in addition to, being a Vedic meditation teacher, I've also been studying Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is sort of like the sister science to Vedic meditation. And Veda means knowledge and Ayur means longevity. So Ayurveda is the knowledge of longevity. And I like to say that the Ayurvedic school of thought, they were the original biohackers, right? Like these are the people who are really testing
You're right,
out.
when you think about it,
Yeah.
it makes absolute sense.
And honestly, there's so much in line with the biohacking movement in Ayurveda because it's all about optimizing your performance. It's all about figuring out how do you perform on this thing. So in Ayurveda, there's 3 different body types or doshas, and they're called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And Vata is like air and space. Pitta is fire, and Kapha is earth and water. So if you've ever been to an acupuncturist, and they'll diagnose you with the elements. Like if you have a chest cold, they'll say you have damp wind, which basically means like a mucusy cough, which is so gross. I can't believe I just said the word mucus. But the thing is, we all have all of these elements in us, but to varying degrees, right? So I'm a bit more Vata dominant than you are. You are a bit more Pitta dominant. Pitta is fire. So Vata is air and space, and Pitta is fire. So here's a really good archetype for these doshas. So Vata, think about like an ectomorph, or like a celebrity version would be like Tilda Swinton, like very tall, very lanky, like high cheekbones, very fast metabolism. When Vata people are out of balance, we get sort of like nervous or anxious or have insomnia. And then there's Pitta, which is like a medium build, like a mesomorph, and like a celebrity archetype of this would be Ari Gold from Entourage. So this is a character, he plays like a big, high-powered Hollywood agent, and he's just got a terrible temper, and when he's angry, he just takes everything off of his desk, and he just like throws it, and it doesn't mean that everyone, if you're Pitta, you're angry, it just means if you're out of balance. You're quick, they're very good leaders, they're very good at starting projects, but that same power, when out of balance, can get a little bit ragey, a little bit temper. So Pitta imbalance would look like too much heat, too much fire, like a liver imbalance, or like a skin, like redness of the skin. And then there's Kapha, which like an archetype of that, well, that would be like an endomorph. And so like an archetype of that would be like Oprah. Someone who has a lot of gravitas, someone who's very like, there's a lot of earth in there, like a boulder, like a bulldog. And with Kaphas, it's very hard to get them going, but once they get going, try and stop them. They've got a lot of inertia. And so with Kaphas, when they're out of balance, it's sort of like a sluggishness. Like they just can't get off the couch, and they're just tired, and it's just hard to get things going. So that's sort of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So the way that this applies to hacking your day is that just like every person has all 3 doshas in them, or all 3 body types in them, every day, every 24-hour period has different times of the day that are optimized for certain things. So 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. is Kapha time of day. So this is good to know because most of us are waking up around 7 or 8 a.m. and this is the hardest time of day to wake up because it's like that earth and that water, that boulder energy. It's sort of stagnant, weighty energy, so it's quite hard to wake up. So what people will notice is that even if you get less sleep, but if you wake up at 6 in the morning, it's actually much easier to wake up and you have much more energy. So it's like if you're a night owl, you should either just rip the Band-Aid and get up at 6, or you should just go ahead and sleep until 10. But getting up in the middle of that Kapha time of day is very challenging. If left to my own devices, I'll sleep till 10. Like, it's not good for you, and don't do this at home, but if left to my own devices, I'll sleep 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. Now, this is something that I'm working on. I'm actively trying to shift in my life. So here's the trick. So then 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. is Pitta time of day, right? Which makes sense because the sun is highest in the sky. This is the hottest time of day. This is when our digestive fire is the highest. So this is ideally when you want to eat, your biggest meal. It's also when you're going to have, a lot of energy, a lot of creativity. And then 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. is the Vata time of day. And so this is normally when most of us are at work, and so it's very much like a thinking time of the day, an idea time of the day. And then 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. again is Kapha time of day. So it's when we have our meal. It's when we want to start to be winding down. We want to start to be getting into bed. And now here's another really good tip to know, that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. goes back into Pitta. It goes back into that fire. right? So if you're not, and you'll probably notice this, that if you're not asleep by around 10 or 11 p.m., that you've got this whole third wind, and night owls will report that that's their most productive time of their day.
That's the time I'm writing, ideas are coming to me, and so on.
Yeah, that's because you're Pitta dominant, so that's your go time, right? So, and here's the trick. So if you really want to hack your sleep, then you would want to go to bed before 10 p.m., and then and then get up at 6, and you'll notice that that same level of productivity that you had that late night, you could have early in the morning, or it'll actually give you like more energy the next day. Now, P.S., this is the one thing that I'm the most hypocritical about, and I really don't like to be a hypocrite, so I just like to give full disclosure that I am not practicing what I'm preaching right now. I'm working on it. It's something that I'm really actively trying to up-level, but I think it's because I was on Broadway. This is my excuse, but it's because I was on Broadway for so long, and I've been performing since I was 8 years old, that I was literally working with bright lights on me until 11 o'clock at night. And so I was wired definitely always until 2. And so it's just taking me a little bit of time to re-establish new habits. But I'm being patient with myself.
And it's not easy, right? Like, I got to get my kid to the school bus at 8 a.m. every morning. So I got to be up by 7:30. So I don't have a way to change that.
Yeah, like that's a fixed thing. But one thing that you could shift is going to bed. Like if you start to put lights out at 9:30 and you're in bed by 10, then what happens usually is that the rest that you get before midnight is more restful than the rest that you get after midnight. So sometimes even that will help you need a little bit less sleep, so it's easier to get up. So I'm saying that like maybe getting up at 6, you might actually feel better than sleeping till 7:30, even though you're getting an hour and a half more sleep.
And where's the evidence for this? Is this simply Vedic philosophy? Has this been studied in the lab?
To be honest, I don't know if there's any new research about it. I'm actually, the interview I'm doing later on today, it's a sleep, it's like a sleep summit, and it's this guy who wrote a new book called The Power of When, and it was so funny. We met at a summit and we were chatting, and everything he was saying, like all of his research and all of his science that he's been doing was absolutely everything that I just said to you. He just has different words for it. So I think that there's new sleep science is starting to come out, but I haven't actually, the book isn't out yet, so I haven't read it, but this stuff has been around for 6,000 years. You know, everyone's putting butter in their coffee now, you know, like thanks to our friend Dave Asprey, but the Vedic people have been saying like put fat in your food for 6,000 years. You know, I think it's hilarious that like now that neuroscience is catching up to what all these Indian dudes have been saying, then now we're like, oh yeah, okay, fine, meditation's good for you. But meanwhile, they've been saying it for 6,000 years. But it'll come.
So that's a really powerful idea. What else would you recommend that we can bring in to optimize our days?
So a really simple, so we already talked about times of day to meditate, which would be before breakfast and then before dinner. But another really simple, really free Ayurvedic hack is to have a cup of hot water before you eat. Now, so simple.
I noticed that. I noticed you asking for hot water before lunch earlier today. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so it does a few things. One, it can help to detoxify the system. 2, you actually absorb the water more easily if it's warm. So according to Ayurveda, you don't really ever want to drink anything colder than room temperature. Like ice water is no bueno according to Ayurveda, because it costs your body so much energy to heat it up. And when it's cold, it's like it constricts all the blood, and that you'll pass the water through you. So it's almost like you'll pee out more than you drink in. You know, sometimes if you take a shower and you're dry afterwards because all the water was just running off of your skin, so then you have to put on lotion or oil afterwards. Well, if you're drinking water that's too cold, you're passing the water through you instead of absorbing it, so it actually can be dehydrating. Versus if you drink it warm, then it's easier for the body to assimilate it and absorb that hydration. And also, the thing I love about the hot water is that because I am quite Vata dominant, so when I get out of balance, I get very like anxious and I talk really fast and I get insomnia and I'm like, you know, I buzz really, really fast. You know, people are always like, whoa, are you sure you're a meditation teacher? You're like the most high energy meditation teacher there is. I'm like, but I really love meditation. But the hot water helps to ground me, because what it does is that it's an analgesic. It brings that blood into my gut. It brings that blood into my digestion. So if I'm feeling indecisive or I'm not sure what I want, I have a bit of hot water, and then instead of trying to think my way through a problem, it's like I can intuit my way through the problem. It literally is bringing energy to your gut so you can start to make gut decisions, and it's much easier to listen to what your body is asking for. It also cuts the acid, so when we get hungry, we get acidic. right? And acid is, according to Ayurveda, the basis for all disease. And so a lot of meditation actually, like we talked about earlier, it gets rid of adrenaline and cortisol, which are acidic in nature, and instead floods the brain and body with dopamine and serotonin, which are alkaline in nature. So this hot water can have an alkalizing effect too, because it cuts the acid. So it's kind of like this like free miracle wonder thing that no one really knows about. It also keeps you from just being like, I'm so hungry, let me just eat everything that's in front of me. Because you eat that you literally eat that hot water, you're ingesting pure calories, it's just pure energy, and then you don't feel as hungry. Right? You're able to hear what your body's asking for, and you don't eat as much of it.
I'm going to try that tonight.
You're going to love it.
What else do you think have you come across in your explorations, in your study of Vedic science, that you think we in the modern world need to be paying attention to?
Raw fat is a big one. So, and I know that, our friend Dave Asprey has made this really popular. He's asking everyone to put butter in it, and he's asking, for grass-fed butter, which is amazing. I would say if we can take that one step further and really incorporate raw fats, because it's very hard to get raw dairy in the US. It's hard to find raw butter, and actually most places in the world.
So I know you and I know about this, but to many people listening, this could be completely new, right? So I just want to segue here and just explain what we're about to talk about. There's an idea out there right now that fats are bad, right? So we tend to buy things such as low-fat milk. Until a year ago, I was still drinking low-fat milk. When I was eating bacon, I would cut away the fatty part of the bacon. But new science is saying that this is absolute rubbish, and I'd love for you to talk about that for a moment. New science is showing that fats are actually healthy. Your brain needs fats, and fats do not actually cause you to gain weight. Sugars and carbs and pasta and carbohydrates do, but not fat.
And stress.
And stress, right. So a lot of people, including me, Emily, this has been largely popularized by a mutual friend, Dave Asprey, are dramatically changing the way they eat, consuming high fat, but cutting down on carbs. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, so Ayurvedically speaking, especially people who are Vata dominant, people who tend towards nervousness or anxiety or insomnia, it's very important that you increase your raw fat intake, because it's like soothing out your nervous system. Imagine that like you've got like little nerve endings that are like they're like zapped and they're frayed. If you put fat on top of them or oil on top of them, it's literally soothing them. And like you said, the brain runs almost exclusively on EPAs and DHAs, right? And that's what raw fat is. So when you eat it, you're actually giving your brain the fuel that it needs. And so your body, because if you don't give your brain the fuel that it needs, your brain will literally suck it up from your body, and it can dehydrate the rest of your body. It's crazy. Sometimes when I teach meditation courses or do meditation retreats, people are like, Emily, I'm so hungry. I went home and I ate a whole pizza. And like, don't do that. Just have a scoop of coconut oil or eat an avocado, because what your brain's actually asking for is fat. And you're right, like, Mark Hyman, who's speaking at AFES, he has a book called Eat Fat, Get Thin, because we had this old idea that fat was going to make you fat. But if you're eating the right kinds of fat, and that's really important, that raw fat basically means something that's uncooked. Or if you're going to do oil, it means like a cold pressed or raw, like unrefined oil. And you'll notice that even if you were to put oil on your skin, like if you were to put like a cold pressed coconut oil on this arm, and a coconut oil that's been like cooked or processed under heat on this arm, this one will soak in no problem, and this one will just sit right on top of your skin. So this is why it's so important that the fat be raw, because and especially with animal fat, if you cook it, then it actually can become carcinogenic. And I think a lot of us were eating the wrong kinds of fats. We were eating hydrogenated oils or cooked fats, which can actually be bad for you. So it's really
and
the raw fat.
Ridiculous things like avoiding butter for the sake of margarine, which is basically one molecule away from plastic.
Gross.
So does this mean that this whole myth about avoiding fats is just rubbish?
Well,
is there any truth in it at all?
I think there's some truth in it if the type of fat that you're eating is cooked animal fat or processed oil. Like those fats can be bad for you, or certainly if the types of fats that you're eating are like hydrogenated oils that have been molecularly changed, because your body doesn't even recognize that it's food, right? And then it just creates, linings on your arteries, and that's no bueno. But with the raw fat, your brain just sucks it up and uses it as fuel. And you feel it. Like, actually, an interesting study came out recently that said as little as like 40 milliliters of coconut oil is enough to improve your cognitive performance, like within minutes.
And this is why so many people now are drinking bulletproof coffee, which is coffee with butter infused in it. Dave Asprey just opened the first bulletproof cafe in Santa Monica, and they're adding brain octane oil to it. And I started doing that as well. A lot of people at Mind Valley are absolutely hooked on it. I don't drink much caffeine anymore, so I'm not so into it. But so many people I work with swear that this is what makes them a high-performing individual. So it's totally worth talking about. And we have a CE interview with Dave Asprey, so you can dive into this topic further.
And so I don't drink coffee either because nobody wants to see me on coffee, but I do love the brain octane oil. I'll put it in my smoothies, I'll put it on salads, and you can do that with anything. You could put an avocado in your smoothie. You could put, a cold pressed olive oil on your salad. Like there's easy ways to access raw fats. And I would say just try it, see if it works for you and see if you don't feel more clear, more grounded, and have more sustainable energy throughout the day.
I mean, it's crazy, right? We've built a world that has got it completely the wrong way around. Like when we think about our lover, we call our lover sugar, and we don't want our lover to be fat. But in reality, fat is good. Sugar is what is really, really, really harmful.
I love it so much, though. I'm really working on that one, too. But yeah, it's bad.
So, thank you so much, Emily. So, let's recap. So, we spoke about meditation and what meditation does to your brain and your performance. You learned a simple way to meditate. And then we spoke about Ayurveda and some ideas you can practice from Ayurveda in terms of how to structure your day, particularly your sleep habits. We looked at eating, and we looked at the biggest myth in the world today when it comes to what foods to put in your body, and that is the fat is bad myth. Fourth, let's talk about your fourth tip today.
Yeah, so it's a relatively recent one because as Ziva has grown, I've really, I have this company to run, but I'm also, creating new programs and writing this book, and I'm sure you have this, I know you know this, because a lot of us are trying to create big things, and we're trying to manage companies or manage families at the same time. And I actually learned this from my husband, who's the smartest man I know. And he said, Emily, you have to know the difference between a creator's schedule and a manager's schedule. And he's like, and you can't expect yourself to be both at the same time because your brain doesn't work like that. So I've literally started scheduling my day, and if I'm in manager time, I'll take 30-minute, 20-minute, 1-hour meetings, and I can do them back to back to back. But if I'm going to work on a new program or a new blog post or work on the book or really create anything that's birthing something, I need at least 3 to 4 hours of solid time. Like that is the creator's schedule. So you could do both in a day, and I'd say if you're going to do both, start with the creation first. Like that's when you're freshest, that's when you're going to be able to hear those downloads and get those insights more clearly. And then if you're going to schedule your meetings, do them afterwards. But know that you can't schedule 4 hours of writing time and do one conference call in the middle of it because you kind of shot that whole time. So even if you don't stick to it all the time, just knowing that that's the optimal way to schedule if you're creating and managing has been revolutionary for me in running a company.
That's awesome. That's a really, really, really powerful tip. Is creative time and managerial time different for different individuals?
I do believe that it is, and that would, at least according to Ayurvedic medicine, depend largely on your dosha or your body type. So we actually have a fun quiz over at zivaeats.com where you can find out like what your body type is. Are you Vata, Pitta, or Kapha? And then once people know, then they can be like, oh, well, I'm Pitta, so 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., that's my go time. That's when I really want to do the most important priority for me.
And that's at zivaeats.
That's right, zivaeats.com.
Okay, so thank you so much, Emily. This was awesome. Thank you for sharing that wisdom with us. And if you want to learn more about Emily, we have a second interview with her on consciousness engineering. And that was one I really loved, too, because we went deep into topics. In addition to meditation for performance, we also spoke about intuition, inspiration, how to be fully connected. And I love that. So we touched a little bit on that over here. In this conversation, you learn the importance of living life that way. And also check out the Consciousness Engineering training by Dave Asprey, where we dive deeper into this whole topic about what to put into your body and how to recognize what foods to avoid, sugars, and what foods to really soak in, fats. So thank you, Emily. Thank you guys for listening.
Bye.